Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. Today my guest is Jordan Calloway. You guys may know Jordan as Painkiller on Black Lightning. You might know him as Chuck Clayton on Riverdale. You might remember from Unfabulous or ER or any of the other cool things he's been a part of. But what Jordan is one of the nicest celebrities I've ever met. When I met Jordan, he came on as a guest on a show that I was working on AfterBuzz TV, and we exchanged information because the guy's really cool and just generous with his time and just likes to talk and hang out. And we've stayed in touch ever since. So I was really excited to be able to bring him here on Nerds and Suits and talk to him and ask him about his experience as an actor in Los Angeles. We talk about comic books. We talk about dating in LA. We talk about his role as an actor in LA, especially a black actor, and what that feels like given the state of what's going on right now in the world and in the entertainment industry. And he's very candid about the stuff that he talks about. I really appreciated how honest and open he was. So I really hope you guys enjoy this one. A big time thank you to all of my Infinity patrons in the Nerd Network. That list of people is as follows. I've got Brianne Chandler. I've got Jake Yacovetta, John Patterson, Lucas Shawshek, Nicole Krafik, and Trevor Fast. I straighten my tie to every single one of you, members of the Nerd Network, certified Infinity. And a huge thank you to every single one of you who has joined at patreon.com/nerds and suits. We've got another studio diary going on this Saturday where I'm revealing a bunch of cool behind the scenes music stuff, plus other fun stuff coming up as well. So thanks for watching the show, and enjoy this interview.
It's interesting. I've picked up new skills during this whole, I was about to say break, but in this whole like quarantine. I'm putting in a deck, which is going to be a surprise for mom. But so hopefully she doesn't see this now. But yeah, man, I've been working around the house and everything.
Cool.
It's everybody has been affected by this whole pandemic in many different ways, and I think it's revealed a lot. So it's been, especially for oneself, it's revealed a lot for myself. My areas of growth, my areas of maturity, where I need to mature. So I mean, honestly, I just hope you can't put it on everybody, but you hope everyone would probably take something out of this.
Learn something from it.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, man. Well, you mentioned it feeling like a little bit of a break, and I think that's interesting because in some ways, for some of us, I mean, I totally feel for every single person who is going through a hard time right now, because you hear so many stories, so many of my friends, so many of the fans of the stuff I'm doing are communicating that it's a really hard time. People are losing jobs. People are on break from work. People are really scared with pre-existing conditions. But if you're somebody who is fortunate enough to be able to kind of work from home and stay inside, it is really, it does feel like a break from everything. It doesn't feel like, right? Like there's so much of my life now that like traveling was part of it. Well, I just haven't had to travel in 4 months. I've been able to, for the first time in my adult life, like stay in one place, which is crazy.
Yeah. And it's also, it forces you to appreciate, the stuff that we do have, the things that we take it for granted all the time in our day-to-day lives, so I was just talking to a friend, actually, I think it was earlier today or it was yesterday, but we were just talking about, just the things that you realize you take for granted,
Dude.
and just appreciating the things that you have. Like even just the time with like I've had about 3-4 birthdays for my niece and nephews, and it's it's interesting seeing how they're dealing with it, because we're having huge Zoom conversation or meetings. The whole family gets in, we're all watching, the nephews or niece open the gifts and everything. But just putting myself in the mentality of like my niece and nephews, like I'm thinking like when I was 13, I had a party, this must really suck, so it's it's and then you also look at those that are graduating from high school, those are graduating from college. I mean, so many people in the industry, you have a number of individuals that get their big break from booking a pilot or booking a new show. Lo and behold, it's like that gets shut down and everything now gets just pushed back. So it's interesting, man. It's something that, has caused me to be more empathetic towards, and to just take into consideration, when talking with other people or hearing other people, and their plights that they may have with the whole pandemic, but Yeah, it's definitely turned everybody upside the whole world upside down, you know.
I know. Well, the weird part is too now, because it's been going on for long enough. It's like every conversation used to start kind of like we're doing, like just like talking about what the pandemic has made you realize. And then, but
Yeah.
now if you talk to people more than like this is the first time I've talked to you in a little while. So,
Right.
we're talking about what's going on in life. But like if I talk to you again next week, like we're not going to start the conversation with like, how's the
Hopefully
pandemic been?
not. Hopefully
Like
it'll be
we're,
more like, oh, thank God we're out finally.
yeah,
But
life will
I
just
don't
be,
know, LA, man, 50,000 new cases. Yeah,
ugh,
goodness
it's
gracious.
crazy. Well, so you mentioned nieces and nephews. Do you have a big family? Do you have a lot of brothers and sisters?
Yeah. I do actually. I used to be the baby, but I'm not
Okay.
anymore. But I do have a big family. And my brothers, they're the ones with the kids, 3 each. So it's just growing. I'm waiting
Wow.
on my sisters to get along and add to it because I don't want my mom looking at me wondering where my kids are.
What's going on? Dude, I
you
feel the
know?
same way. I feel the same way. I just got a birthday, like a little like a finger painting from my niece. She's been out in Washington for my
Mhm.
birthday, and it made me so happy. And it was just like, oh, this is so wonderful. I love
It
being
is
an
good.
uncle, but
Yeah.
also like, like I don't know if you and I are certainly not in the same position in our careers, but we are in the same city in the same industry, and it's like
Right.
I just can't picture a way like next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, where I would be able to do that. It seems so hard for me to connect to. I've always believed that I want a family, but like it's
Mhm.
something that more recently I've had to really examine, because like in the industry I'm in the business we're in, like if you want that to be a reality, that's a choice. That doesn't just naturally happen. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just you saying that is I think is very important since we're talking about the relationship aspects as that correlates with our career aspects, right?
yeah, dude.
So with our career, obviously this is a choice. This is something that you put time, you put dedication, you put your focus into. The same thing goes with a relationship, but we'll pull back and you can look at it as just like any type of relationship that you have, friendships, any type of all those type of relationships, that takes time. That's a choice for you to invest into that. And when you get into a relationship, something serious, it's a matter of also not just finding somebody that's compatible for you, not just finding somebody that can understand the industry or understand what you're going through, but and this comes with being in the whole pandemic. Everybody has to realize like what their strengths and weaknesses are, where they
Yeah.
also are lacking in. Because I know for myself, like I'm very selfish with my time, especially when I get creative. I need somebody that can understand that, but I also need somebody that's going to be like, nah, chill, come eat, because I also
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
know where my faults are in this in me examining myself and me doing, and really taking inventory in oneself, right? So it's one of those things that I shy away from when talking about it, relationships.
Yeah.
But she'll come around when she comes around, and I'm not worried about it. So, but it is something that is, yeah, it's definitely a choice, and you
I mean,
gotta
you've
be
been
willing to do it.
you've been a pretty full-time actor for over 15 years. You had like kind of a break when you were younger. So my question is, in that time with what you're talking about, have you had anyone in that time that was you got pretty close with, like a pretty
Oh yeah,
serious one? Has that
yeah, yeah,
happened? Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you've dated.
I've definitely had relationships. I recently was in one. Wonderful woman, wonderful woman. I'll never say
Know where
anything
this is going.
negative about her. Uh, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I will leave it at that. But she is a ray of sunshine, and she's gonna bless somebody. But like I said, I stay away from talking about relationships. As you can see, I'm already perspiring.
Yeah, I feel you on that one, man. Though it's so you go on a bunch of shows. I mean, you've come on AfterBuzz before. I've seen you do interviews and stuff like that.
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
always interesting when you're somebody who has public relationships and they're out in the public eye, and somebody
mhm.
asks you a question like the one I just asked you, and you have to check yourself, because it's like I want to so openly and honestly talk about my life. Like that feels
Right.
much more natural to me than to ever
Mhm.
think about not saying something.
Right,
But
right.
the reality is like it's not always your story to tell. It's not
Yeah,
always,
yeah,
especially if the person that you
exactly.
were involved with was also someone in the public eye. Then it's even more uncomfortable, because it's like you never really want to talk about that stuff on air
I
because it's
mean,
just
I'll put
not
it
your
like
story to
this.
tell.
Yeah, my mom, she's the one that told me this. Just in any relationship that I would get in, or a girl that I would talk to, she'd be like, "Yo, it's your relationship, so it don't matter what your daddy or mine or I think or your siblings or anything," because that used to be a issue for me. But
What your
yeah, my
family
mom,
thought of the person?
huh?
It was an issue for you, like what your family thought of the person. You mean, or
Yeah. I mean, like you, how do I say it? I mean, it was an issue of you just want to make sure that everybody likes
yeah, of
your
course.
girlfriend. You know what I mean? So it was
Yeah,
just like the typical type stuff. But my mom, she was the one that always said it's not everybody's business to know who you're in a relationship. You know, and so I always take that to heart. And at the end of the day, as long as if I love her, then that's all that matters. You know,
I
but
do.
but yeah, man, it really goes back, I think, and it boils down to first, myself, being honest with myself, being real with myself. um because yeah, when you're gonna have to be the same way with that person that you're gonna want to compliment you. But
Yep.
hey, I'm not no love doctor. I don't got all the answers. I'm trying to make it. I'm single myself, so I mean, take what you want with a grain of
Yeah.
salt.
I feel you, man. I feel you. Well, I mean, you're a handsome guy. You're in great shape. You're on
Oh,
television.
thank
Do
you.
you find that you're constantly getting hit up on like IG DMs and all that kind of stuff? Is that something that you've had to really deal with? It's not something I really interact with too much. Obviously, I'm not that
You
out there
know,
much.
I'm just gonna leave that alone.
Okay, okay,
Leave that
all right,
one
that's fair.
alone.
That's fair enough, man. Well, so all right, let's. So a second ago, we were talking about kind of doing everything from one spot in the apartment and auditions. What's that been like for you? I mean, obviously, I know work is continuing to
Yeah,
go on.
thank
Things
God
are
for that.
happening.
Yeah, thank God
They
for
just
that.
happen in a different way. Have you done a bunch of self tapes since this all started?
Honestly, I mean, I was scheduled to do an independent film in New York, which would have been a lot of fun. However, COVID hit. That got that got knocked back, and then I wasn't in an audition for a Netflix film, which I think a few of my cast members that I know of, or one other, booked, so they're waiting to film
Oh,
that.
cool.
But that was, yeah, that seems like a really cool, interesting project. It's a western with
Oh,
Idris.
awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
So yeah, so that was a bust for me. What else? I've gone on like one other audition, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah.
Self tapes, I mean, you learn to adapt. If anything,
Yeah.
you learn to adapt, and that's all it really is. So, I mean, it's different. It is different, but thank God for friends that are used to doing self tapes and everything. I haven't been able to go out too much on auditions just because
Yeah.
contractually,
Yep.
with Black Lightning and CW. So that's more so for shows though.
Yeah.
Usually this time, around the period of time from I want to say mid January up until, well, what would be July, because usually we would be starting back up now. But
Yeah.
usually in between that time is when I would audition for more films or features. But hey, it could be a lot worse. I know other individuals that have it a lot worse. So yeah, so it's I have nothing to complain about. I mean,
Yeah.
when the auditions come, I seize the opportunity.
Yeah, dude. No, there's you mentioned Black Lightning, obviously, and I originally met you because of Riverdale, which was the show you
Riverdale,
were on
right, right,
prior
right. Yep.
Black Lightning. And then, as I've seen happen before with talented actors in the CW family, you get to read for other parts. They bring you in for something
Yeah,
else, and then
yeah.
obviously now here you are, one of the stars of the show. And so on my
Uh,
Patreon, I've got all these patrons of the Nerd Network at different levels, and one of the perks of being a patron here on Nerds and Suits is that you get to submit questions exclusively from my guests. So I had a few people that wanted to ask you a few questions about the show.
Bring it on.
Yeah, so let me cue a couple of these up here. So the first one is from John Lastrina. He says, I watch all the CW Arrowverse shows. Was there a particular moment or scene in Black Lightning that you are most proud of that showcased your talent?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. I would probably say the fight against the Markovians in the warehouse. That was a lot of fun. But then also the fight against myself with my stunt double, Nick Pelikai. And the fight choreography that was done in that was just tremendous. I mean, Danny Boyer, David Conk, Eric Mbanda. These are all the guys that are behind all of this fight choreography. That's our stunt team. That's our stunt crew, and I love those guys to death. So I have to give them a huge shout out. Deandra, she's the one that was even teaching me collie sticks. So there was that episode with the Markovian warehouse fight, which was a lot of fun. That was directed by Benny Boom. There was the other episode where I did fight myself, which was.
Let's stay on that for a second, because actually the next question is from Matty Gunner, who's another certified nerd here in the Nerd Network, and his question is, because he's an MMA guy, he's
beautiful.
In Britain. Yeah, he's in England, and he fights. And so he says, selfishly for me, it'd be cool to know what kind of training and preparation he went through for the combat scenes like this one. And then he sent me that exact scene where you fight yourself. So he really wants to know the exact training.
Oh, yeah. What was his name again?
Matty Gunner.
Matty. Okay. So, man, that was a lot of fun because they taught me. I'm trying to think. Oh no, I'm getting that confused with the other episode where I was doing like I think 7 different martial arts. In the where was it in the ASA where I was in the dojo, and that one doing that fight I just studied. So think of it like this: it's like football tape. When you go into watch tape with the football team to see, check your. To study when you're watching tape, right? So it's essentially the same thing. Our stunt team, what they did is they choreographed all the different fights. Whenever I have time, they'll let me also be in there to do the previs. But in that case, they had I think it was 7, I forget how many different martial arts that we actually showcased in that scene, where I'm talking about the different styles of fighting that I know of, which was Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, Silat, among other ones, right? So they did the whole choreography. They sent it to me, and pretty much I just studied it. So I was just studying that. They gave us about 2 days, and then one day we got in to rehearse a little bit, and then we just shoot it. But I think, because working with the stunt team and training with them even during the off season, because that's what I'll do as well, just training with them, it's all muscle memory. I mean, if he's an MMA fighter, so he understands, just even the 1s and 2s and your hooks when you're slipping a jab or whatever. All these different things just become muscle memory. So when they threw in different martial arts for me to do, that just came like breathing. And that's also because I have phenomenal stunt crews, phenomenal stunt team, and the ones that were teaching, like Kali. I was fighting with Kali. Deandra, she's the one that is Thunder Stunt Double. She was the one that was teaching me how to do Kali and everything. So it's just practicing and just sticking with it and continuing it, because for one, I enjoy it. I watch MMA. I love fighting. I did jiu-jitsu for 2 years. So it's like, this is kind of my stage. You know what I mean? So I love it. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of just showing up and being dedicated and a lot of stretching.
Yeah, man. That it looks like it. I mean, it's pretty athletic stuff. That's a cool scene where you're fighting yourself, using swords and all that. It looks great.
Oh yeah, the swords. Yeah, that was another one. Yeah, because he was asking specifically about the fight against myself. That was me and Nick just learning both sides of that fight, and man, that was the last week that we were doing this whole thing. Salim was directing that, and I mean, as Salim always says, man, have fun. Just went out there and did it.
So you have to shoot all the primary, and then you have to shoot the reverse, right? So you learn both sides of the fight, and he's on the other side.
Yeah. So Nick and I, we were rehearsing that one because there was a lot of action going on during that time. So we didn't have much time to rehearse because Danny and David, they had to, choreograph all the other action scenes that were going on with other things. And Nick was needed to do that as well. So, some of that is getting together over the weekend. Some of that is, just talking it out or just walking through beats, and knowing what you're going to do. The biggest thing that helps, I would say, would be, especially if it's a prop weapon, getting the weapon in
Yeah,
your hands and just being able to mess with
totally.
it while taking that. I mean, when I was back over at my apartment in Atlanta, I'm sure like my neighbors saw me walking with like swords at one point, a bow staff, one other point, and they're just like, "What does he do? Oh my god!" So it's
Yeah.
a lot of fun though, man. It's just a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. No, I can't imagine like learning all that stuff. I feel like 100% I would injure myself. There's like just no question
Well, yeah, you
that would
definitely
happen to me.
will. Oh yeah, I got scars and everything to prove it, like from season 2 and everything. But
Yeah.
it's fun though, man. It's just being a big kid, So
Yeah. I was so excited for you when I heard you'd booked it because I remember after you came on Riverdale, you and I had a long conversation about comic books. I mean,
yeah,
I know you're a big comic book guy, and I know
yeah,
it
yeah.
had to have been a dream for you to have booked a superhero show.
Dude, man. I mean, I count it every day as just a blessing. I mean, even just just working, first of all, just working as an actor,
Yeah.
it's a huge thing. You understand being in the industry, we're in an industry where it's a feast or famine type of business, right?
Yeah, dude.
So that's why you also have to make sure that you're not so grounded or locked into this idea of fame or this idea of what the industry builds it up to be, because at the end of the day, I mean, we just the same, one and the same, you know what I mean? So and it can be one of those things where it's, for struggling actors, I don't I have a hard time with saying struggling actors because, like you said, I've been in the industry for well over 2 decades, going through it, having a father that's also a DP, seeing how he has struggled as well. It's that struggle of anybody in the industry that gives you that appreciation more for the craft that we do. In
Yeah.
doing that, you appreciate it. The value of one's appreciation for what we do only increases when we actually struggle through it. So yeah, man. I mean, I've been let go from William Morris. I've been let go from
Yeah.
old managers. You know what I mean? I've been told, I've been dropped from shows. I've been told, man, the acting isn't. And guess what? People might have been right at that time. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
can't take it. You can't take it personally. You know, and so I don't know how I just ran onto that rant, but
No,
I felt like maybe somebody needed that. So who knows?
I think it's an interesting point you make, man, because when you look at your career, a lot of people, if you don't know the person, you look at their IMDb. That's the first thing people do, generally speaking, with
Mhm.
someone's career. You just go to see what their credits are.
Mhm.
And as you said, you've been in the industry for 2 decades. You
Mhm.
found success with ER and then Unfabulous.
Oh
You
yeah,
did
man.
that for a few years, and that was a big deal. And
Mhm.
then there's a few years there where you're not booking as much stuff,
Mhm.
and there's an in between there. And my question to you is, when you talk about kind of having struggled and having been let go, that in between phase, talk to me about what that felt like. Is there a
Well, I
moment
mean,
in the middle of that was
yeah,
you can remember?
I think it honestly had to do with how my parents raised me. They wanted to keep me grounded. So when I was young and acting, I had to maintain a 3.5 grade point average and play sports. Those were required. Oh, and make sure that I'm serving in the church. Three main things. As long as I continue those, I could continue acting and do what I wanted to do. And the fact that I say that is because when I went to college, I met great people. I went to college, did my thing. But I also learned that I actually enjoy storytelling. Told you, like, I write, I read, there's so many other things besides just acting and being in front of the camera that I learned while in this period of no work, or very few work, because
Yeah, less work.
I was in college. I was doing some work. I was still going out on auditions, man. Like over, because I went to the Azusa Pacific, right? And that's like out in Azusa, and then try going to West LA for an audition after while playing baseball and having two a days in the morning, and then driving there and having to come back for class. So I was putting that grind in, and putting that work in, and shoot, you started you do question your value. You do question your worth. So don't think like that goes without saying. Everybody's going to question whether they're good or not, you know? I feel like the thing that really matters is, does it matter if somebody else thinks you're good or not? How do you feel about, how do you feel about what you did? How do you feel about what you created or what you brought to the table? And I'm speaking specifically, obviously, in our industry. So that's one of the things that I really pulled and took away from, especially while now being on my own and being in college, and it's like, do I still want to keep acting or do I want to play baseball? What do I want to do? I at one point wanted to be a chef. I love to cook, so it's like, but I stuck with it. I stuck in it, and I always bring sort of an athletic perspective approach to it. And I also just hold it loosely. My mom, she was the one and this is the thing that I still do. Before going into every audition, I just pray and I'm like, God, if it's for me, open the doors. If it's not, slam it shut, because when you're able to just, especially in this industry, especially, anybody with whatever that they really want, whatever they really, really want, we can also get in the way of that. Because if you desire something so much to the point where now you're overthinking it or overguessing it, and now you're affecting how you do this, and you might not be as committed to do certain, you know what I'm saying, to take certain chances or certain things, then hey, relax, breathe.
Gotta be willing to lose it all, so to speak.
Man. And if you do lose it all, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, and like you said, I've worked before and I've not. And, God willing, I continue to keep working. But if I don't, then hey, we'll go on to the next thing. We adapt. Look at everybody now with this whole corona, the COVID-19. We learn to adapt. That's one of the greatest things about the human brain, is that when you just take a breath, when you relax, and then you realize, going back to the things that we're saying, where you appreciate those things, you just chill, man. And then you find another way to get it done. And hey, if that doesn't work, then just watch some anime. Just watch some anime.
Yeah, man, you gotta do what you gotta do to stay happy. That's really interesting stuff, man. I always find that really fascinating to hear from people, because obviously, the shows you were on when you were younger they were pretty big shows, but also you were a kid. Being a child actor, or a teenager actor, it's a very different experience. That kind of success. You're living with your parents at that time, probably, I'm guessing. Or around that time anyway. And that,
no, I was definitely with my parents. No, my parents was definitely not. I'll tell you something about Black families. Let me tell you something. They ain't gonna let nobody get in the way of their baby. Don't matter. No. Yeah, they were. My parents were definitely on it. Definitely on it.
So next question I had from a patron here is from Joseph Boros, who is a certified double diamond patron in the Nerd Network. And
all right, certified double diamond.
Double diamond, man. Yeah, true story. You know Del Frisco's, the steakhouse in LA.
Yeah,
have you ever seen it? When I was coming up with the levels for my Patreon, they call it a Double Eagle Steakhouse, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck a Double Eagle Steakhouse is. It sounds awesome, and nobody I could talk to could explain to me what a Double Eagle Steakhouse was.
That sounds dope. Like,
they might have just made it up. Maybe it's some sort of certification.
That's interesting.
So I was like, I got to go with something like that. So I can't. Double diamond was important.
Hey man, double diamond is nice. I like it.
Yeah, he's a good dude. So he asks you, ask him about playing Painkiller in Black Lightning, and in this day and age, about the cultural impact he believes the show has had. Also, ask him about the opening scene of the show and its relevance in the current climate.
Okay. So let's try and work backwards. First, with the opening scene for the show. I know we have a couple of different cold opens. Is there a specific one that he is?
He didn't specify it, so truthfully, I've seen a bunch of Black Lightning, but I haven't watched the whole show, so I can't pull offhand what it is.
Okay, I'm gonna go now. I'll see. All right.
I figured maybe is there some sort of like a violence type of scene that opens the show, or is that like?
No,
maybe that was what he's referencing.
Okay. The violence episodes, I mean, I know we get pretty violent on the show, which honestly I like. I like that we push that envelope.
Well, let me rephrase this question for him then, because I think it's more interesting to ask you about the second piece of it, which is the cultural impact. And I think
Yeah,
probably,
yeah, definitely would love that. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good place to start, because I'm sure there are scenes in the show that you guys have filmed that have resonated
Mhm.
especially more right now in the
Right,
last 2 months. And I
right,
think
right.
that's probably a good question to ask.
No, I think it was. It's actually interesting that that's the question because Salim, our showrunner, he shared in a group text with all of us that a mother reached out to him and she explained a story that she had with her son. She was talking to her son during the whole. It was earlier. I think it was maybe a month or two ago, back when the George Floyd murder occurred, and the message that she sent Salim was she talked to her son, was trying to have a conversation with him about what to do if he's pulled over by the police, and how to talk with the police. In technically, it's a typical conversation that a lot of Black families have.
Yep.
Anyway, son, he said, I understand, mom. No, I already know. And obviously, when I read that, I'm like, wait, what? You just cut your mom off? Like, what? No. But what he said afterwards was, I saw in Black Lightning how Jefferson's Pierce had the conversation with his daughters. Moments like that are
Yeah.
the ones that are always going to stick with actors or stick with anybody that is doing something of a profession. So when you get questions like that, the cultural impact, something like that, you can only think, I'm dramatic, call me dramatic or not, but we did our job by
Right.
educating a young Black man and young Black women as well on how do you handle a situation when you're pulled over by the police and possibly saved his life. That's why I say I'm dramatic. So, and I only say that because that for me is a diamond shoot, double eagle steakhouse or double diamond, whatever
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there is something of value.
Right.
And our show, we push that envelope. We touch on social topics. We go after it. The character that I play as a young Black athlete from the opposite side of the tracks, who has worked his ass off to get to where he is, to go to collegiate level track star, has it all going for him. He's a positive influence in Jin's life. That's where we meet them, and he loves this girl, right?
Yeah.
And then we meet them where, boom, everything is ripped out of from underneath him. I mean, he comes from a family where it's a single mother. His brother was killed, and his father was incarcerated. So I know people like that. I've been blessed with parents and with an upbringing where I will never try to claim that, because that would be a slap in the face to cousins, to friends that I know that have gone that and endured that. However, being able to portray that, however, being able to pull from what I do know, that is one of the things that, if anything, like with any actor, I like to say that we need to be malleable. So we need to be like clay, soft clay, and be able to be formed. When you take that and you try to dive into a character and you learn and you understand and you hear other people that come from that walk of life, you treat that with a lot more respect. And in doing so, that only comes by you hearing and understanding now. It's kind of like walking in your neighbor's shoes. Interesting
Yeah.
how that would be if more people did that, right? But anyway, it's like it's walking in his shoes, walking in my friend's shoes. So I have a responsibility to do the best that I can, obviously, but also it's a matter of, no, this is a respect thing. So playing Khalil, and I mean, like, it's been a dream come true, uh just simply because of the fact of all the fun action I get to do. But we're talking about a kid's story that he's just trying to do the right thing, and then he gets caught up with the wrong people. I mean, if you follow from season one, like, you're following the journey or the odyssey of Khalil. And it's a tragedy. It's, if you look like Greek writing, it's a
Yeah.
tragedy. I mean, you see how he has to face himself when he loses the ability to walk, and it's man versus himself, you know. And then you see how it's man versus man in season 2 when he is being pulled into the wrong direction, but then he has to find himself again and then has to go ahead and confront that individual that was taking him down that path, which ultimately leads him down to his death. And then season 3, now we're seeing how it's the internal war within oneself. And I thought that was like, it's so right there. It's, you know, man versus himself again. But now we're seeing a physical individual that's representing him, aka Pain.
Yeah, right.
You know, the dark side. It's also the Indian proverb of the 2 wolves, you know.
Right. Yeah. Of course. I mean, as you mentioned, like facing yourself. I mean, that's the ultimate challenge. You see it in
Right.
so many stories, and that's story. I mean, you talk about the impact that your character and watching that arc has had on people. And a couple weeks ago, I had Trevor Steins on the show. I don't know if you know Trevor. He's on Riverdale with you as
Right.
well, and we had a big conversation about sort of the impact of media. And one of the conversations we were having is the kind of bias that comes in the decision making now by these people who are casting and hiring, and he was saying it seems a little cynical maybe that, you know, like as much as it's great to see representation on television, there's still like an element of it that you feel like is almost pandering at times, because I think I'm paraphrasing here, but almost like even though it should have been happening this entire time, the decision to make it happen is happening for the wrong reasons, because it's almost
Right.
like it's what sells right now.
Right.
And what
Right.
I was saying to him was, it's so interesting because even though that happens, the kid who's watching that television show on home has no idea about any of that. He
No,
doesn't.
yeah.
If the
I
lead
mean,
character in the show is black,
point,
it matters to that kid. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
I feel like this is the other thing that people have to grasp. And I say people in our industry have to grasp. Um, Black, white, Hispanic, it don't matter. Man, woman. We're talking about art.
Yeah.
Whoever now granted, there's politics and everything. I've seen politics in baseball, seen politics in school. There's politics everywhere, right? And it's still going to be there. It's still going to be there, right? But we're talking about art. This goes back to, you know, me saying you can't take stuff so personally. And the reason why I say this is because with art, whether that casting director or the director or the producers, they have a vision that they see the project. Whether you fit in it or you don't, that's what it comes down to. You know, you have no say. All you really have say is those 3 minutes in that room, or now via Skype or whatever media that we're going to be using to do self tapes. But it's art, and it's up to the interpretation of other people. So I say that because if we keep feeling as if, oh, it's not fair, it's not this, and now granted, it has not been. I'm not saying that it has been, right? But I'm just saying, don't hope and don't put your hope in that this is going to carry out through a long time, because I guarantee you 5 years from now, this is probably going to be something new. It's going to probably be something. I hope to God it's not, but man, I've realized you can't count on mankind for anything, you know? And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying it as it's a matter of fact. It's a matter of fact, especially when
you feel like it's predictable.
I'm not sure if I think to be let down, yes, that is predictable. But I do think that you have to be able to see if it's art and if this is the profession that we're in, guess what? It's up to the interpretation of the person that's financing it.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting point, and I think those conversations, I've been having a lot of those conversations recently. You know, there's so much media being created surrounding the Black Lives Matter moment and movement. You know, and you see a lot of people talking about it. And one of the things, the arguments online I've seen is somebody will say, "Well, for my business, you know, I'm being criticized for not having a diverse staff." But I'm hiring the best employees. I'm hiring the employees that feel most qualified for my job because it's my business, and I don't want my business to be run worse because then it won't succeed.
Right.
But if you aren't hiring minorities because they aren't giving the same opportunities, the same training, the same background, the same education, and you're only hiring the people then the cycle repeats itself and it'll never change, right? So, and if you sort of apply that, it makes you question the whole idea of, because I agree with you when it comes to art. I do think that the idea that it should change because it should be fair. I mean, I'm a musician. I think, as you know, I'm gonna write songs about what I want to write songs about. I'm not gonna write songs about just the issues that are the most morally balanced. Like, I'll write about Frosted Flakes if I want to. It's my art. Like, I'll just choose to write about what I want to choose to write about.
It is your art, and you get to choose what you want to play. To your point, we have to make sure this doesn't. We got to keep it within realistic guidelines, you know.
Yeah.
And I say that because, I'm an artist, I'm a creator, and guess what? I've written stuff that has barely slim to none any white pigmentation in there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But that's my art. You know what I'm saying? So I can't do that and then also bash somebody else for that. Now, I do agree with the fact that you said that if you continue this cycle where people are not being trained or given the right opportunities, then it's just going to continue down that path where there's no opportunities for Black people or for brown people, whoever. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have to realize where, and you know, it's for me, one of those things where people need to, like I said, take a deep breath and just take a deep breath first and foremost. Again, this is only and let me say that this is my personal opinion. So
it's a good opinion though, man. And
it's my own personal opinion. Take it, leave it, do whatever you want with it. I don't care. The fact of the matter is though, if everybody keeps getting caught up on stuff that's going to keep us stagnant, and if we don't actually if we don't all try to make changes like we're seeing now, the growth that we're seeing, if people can't just hop on board and get with it, then we're just going to be stuck talking about the same thing, running around in circles instead of seeing change, seeing stuff adapt. To your point, though, you were talking about Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to knock an actor. I'm not going to knock anybody if they want to keep doing what their profession is. You know, I'm seeing that a lot of voice actors, they're giving their roles up to other Black voice actors. That's fine. That's cool. Keep in mind, the man that did what was it? Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
That's a Black man. That's a brother. Did his voiceover.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I love it. I loved it. I grew up watching that cartoon. So, you know, whether he keeps it or whether he doesn't, I'm not going to say if somebody should or shouldn't, you know. I do love the fact that there is a change. I do love the fact that there is growth. I think we need to, you know what? I think the main thing that needs to be taught to everybody, not just kids, is look, if you want it, work for it. This shit is not going to be handed to you.
Right.
I mean, it's like that because we have so many. We have a system now. We have conditioned kids to think to believe in entitlement, and that's just, and you know it takes a village, especially now. You know, and it takes a village to raise these kids, and I feel like we have just conditioned kids through social media, through all types of different elements in the industry, in acting or in film and television and music and social media, because that's where they're getting their influence from. That's where they're getting, you know, all of their life lessons or whatever that they look up to and who they hold people in high esteem. So I say that with the most love. I say with the most love. But we gotta go back to where it's like, if you want, you gotta work for it. You gotta show it. And if you get told no, that doesn't mean it's the end. Get back in there, climb back up on that horse. Life ain't fair. At the other flip of that coin, you gotta realize there has been years where people have just been hired because they're white, or
100%. Yeah.
You know, and again, I'm not gonna get into the whole race relations and all of that. I just want people that work hard. I just want people that will put that work in. Why? Because I did the same damn thing. So I expect that from the people that I work with. You know what I'm saying? So we have to have that mentality, though. We have to be willing to tell people, like, nah, especially when they're young. It's like, yeah, life's not fair sometimes. I got let go. I got let go from the show Beyond. That was the ABC Freeform now, their show. And, you know, it was one of those things where it was like, damn, like they let me go. They said, like, you felt like you overacted and everything. Yo, I'm like, shit, damn, that's a shot across the bow. For me, that's my pride. I had to stop smelling myself. And I also had to mature, because during that time, you know, I went through a whole level of maturity too, you know, and that goes back to being honest with yourself, being serious, and really looking at yourself and seeing like, yo, these are my traits. These are the things that I have. These are the things that I lack in. This is what I need to get in line, getting people around you that are going to hold you accountable too, because then you start realizing your own value, because you're applying it, because you're starting to work. You're working, you know, you're working not only on the things that you want to be successful in, but you're working on yourself. And no matter what anybody says, you keep going. You keep going.
When you were paying attention, I imagine you heard Vanessa Morgan had talked about sort of some of the stories being told on Riverdale and how a lot of the
I did not. No.
Okay, a few weeks ago, or maybe over a month ago now, there was a story where I believe it was Vanessa Morgan was saying that a lot of the stories told in Riverdale, the primary stories, were about the white characters, and that the black actors, their stories were kind of supporting. They weren't, featured as much in the forefront. The writers came out and said that's something they're going to work on. They're going to try to rectify.
Well, I think that's wonderful. First and foremost, let me say that I definitely will say that is a needed thing, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But in all my seriousness, that needed to happen. And I'm glad it happened. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to just leave it at that.
Fair enough. Good answer.
Yeah.
Talking about representation on screen, I watched a film called The Hate You Give the other day. Did you see it when it came out? I hadn't seen it when it came out. I missed it. And right now, with the amount of stuff in Los Angeles outside our front door that's happening, the protests, I mean, I've marched in protest. It's a very emotional time. And specifically that topic of police violence, police brutality. And I was struck by one of the lines said by the father in the film. There's a scene when they're out to dinner and he gets pinned by unjust cops on the ground. And, she's filming them and they go home. And she's like, I'm sorry for opening my mouth. I shouldn't have put us in this situation. And it's such an emotional scene. He lines up his kids and he says, line up and recite
makes them
recite the Black Panther. And I started crying. I was yelling at the TV while it was happening, because it was just, you don't realize when what's happening in real life and you see it on screen, how important that is that movie gets made. It's so much more important than just one of the releases that weekend, right? Like that kind of goes back to our whole point of Black Lightning and the stories you're telling and why they matter so much.
Exactly. And what it does, it gives, and this is the thing, I will say this, Black people, we need to be sensitive. We need to educate anybody that's ignorant, because ignorance is not, and you got to be careful with this. There are a lot of ignorant people, right? There's people that are ignorant to what they say, and they're unaware of it. That's where compassion needs to come in. That's where that compassion needs to come in to teach. Now, granted, Black people, we're tired of it though. We're tired of it. Did you see the flash of irritation that I had when you brought up how Black characters represent?
Yeah, I could see it, man. Exactly. It came through.
So I had to pull that back though. And you got a little flash of that, but guess what? Imagine now individuals who have been conformed to who, I mean, there's so much in this social world that happens in Black communities that is just, it's appalling. It's a crazy, right? I forget what the woman's name is, but it's the recording of her where she breaks down how playing Monopoly and how it is when it basically was getting at the fact of, you can't expect us to play a fair game when we don't own anything, right? So I say all of that, I add that whole caveat because to the point of that movie, to the point of Black Lightning, to the point of Blackish, to Black AF, to Insecure. All these different Black shows are giving people a peek into what Black culture, not just Black culture, but Black life is like. So that scene that you saw where the father, he is passionate. That's love when he lines his kids up. Somebody would look at that and be like, why is he angry? No, that's love, because he's more important about instilling the fear of God for his kids in him, to have fear of him, to respect him, so that way they don't go out and say some stupid shit and end up dead.
Yeah.
You know, he never taught them to be weak. He taught them to be smart, though.
Yeah.
So you have different elements like that with the hate that you give, with Black Lightning. When you see those conversations, Cress and I love the scene that we had. I think it was first season, where it was he confronts me in the hall and he's just like, how do you clean yourself? How do you wash? Because we're talking about sex. We're talking about, his daughter. It's like, yeah, he better check a young man like that. That's exactly what it looks like for a Black father. You better believe it. I've been checked before, with my sisters. I've seen my brothers check their boyfriends. So, I mean, welcome to Black culture. And, I say that because when for so many years we've just seen white people on screen, I kind of know, and I went to private high schools as well. So I know white people. I've seen that. You know what I mean? Go ahead, watch some Black shows. Get yourself cultured. I'm sorry, this is my family calling.
Yeah, no worries, man.
But you know what I mean? So it's like, definitely watch the different stuff that you can watch. I mean, and if you don't watch it, then you don't watch it. It's not the end of the world. You're allowed to watch whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. No, I totally do, man. I think that your point there is really sound, because, like, again, it's sort of that conversation about the responsibility versus the preference, and it's important to experience things that are maybe less familiar to you, but it's also watch what you enjoy watching. Watch what not everybody watches movies anymore. That's just the truth. Not everybody watches television. Not everybody watches sports. You choose the content you want. It's important you have the choice over it. Otherwise you won't enjoy it. So the last question I had from a patron here, and I know I got to get you out of here in just a second here.
Oh, man, don't worry about it. It's all good.
This was Charlotte Gherkin, who is another Double Diamond patron in the Nerd Network. She says, hey, Ben, I have a question for Jordan. What has made the biggest impact on your day-to-day life as you have found success in your career? And I think that could be interesting to ask the first time and then the more recent time that you've been working a lot. I mean, those two different times, what was the biggest change?
The biggest change, so the first time versus the more recent time. Oh, man. Okay, so if I'm going back to the first time, it's not gonna be Unfabulous. I mean, man, when you reflect back on your life, you realize things really happen at checkpoints or milestones. Unfabulous was a huge thing because I remember sitting down talking with my mom after we learned that I booked it, and she's just, your life's gonna change, son, but I still whoop your ass. you know, and I love my mama for that. But that was one. That's success, though, right? But if we're talking about joy, if we're talking about happiness, I would say that went back to when I booked my first project, actually, union project for Pepsi with my brother. Because up until then, I had been just on set with my dad, who's a DP, like I mentioned, and I was doing stand-in work, or I was being a stand-in or an extra, and, so yeah, I did my dues, I did all of that, but booking that was one of those things that was just like, wow, a sense of accomplishment. Wow, that's great. Yeah. But my mom, she stopped us when we found that we booked it, and she said, what's the first thing you're going to do? Thank God for it. So put that with Pepsi. Go to Unfabulous. ER, which I was supposed to be 2 episodes. They brought me as a 2-season recurring for that, where I got to play opposite of Makai, who is wonderful, love him. Fast forward, college, did a few films, did a couple of really cool independent films actually. Every time, even till what is it? Till Black Lightning, Riverdale, you know, and I'm so grateful for the relationships on every show, even Riverdale. I love everybody on Riverdale, and and again, I have nothing but love for Roberto and his team. Um, and I think the thing is though that whether it's the first time or the second time, it's I just by giving it up to God, my faith is honestly the biggest thing. That's and the reason why I have to say that is because it's easy to get caught up in the industry. I'm not perfect. I'm the worst. I know my stuff more than anybody else. So I put myself above nobody, right? But I just being able to do what I do and then get questions from fans, go to cons and interact with fans. You know, I'm actually bummed because so there was this young man that I met. His name is Ryan, and I believe it's Ryan or Chris. Chris might have been the other dude, but he was in a wheelchair, and it was at Dragon Con in Georgia, Atlanta, or Atlanta, Georgia. Sorry, and Ryan, he came up on his electric wheelchair, and dude was just great. He was talking about how he loves cosplaying and everything, and how he was going to design an Iron Man cosplay next year where he'll be able to walk and do it. So I was really looking forward to that, like really, really looking forward to that. But you know, I mean, just moments like that, you know, that's where it's because it's I mean, it's just surreal. It just makes you, it's humbling, if anything. It's probably some of the most humbling stuff because, like I said, it's easy to get caught up in it. It's so easy. I get caught up still. It's not just that you don't get caught up and it's one thing. No, you have to constantly remind yourself, like, hey, you ain't shit. Relax. Relax. Like, you can be here one moment, gone the next. And I don't know, man. It's just a journey that I'm enjoying, man, that I'm continuing to enjoy. I get to entertain. I get to be the cool uncle. If anything, that's the best thing. I'm the cool uncle. Like my brothers can't do nothing. You know what I mean? So I love it, man. I'm just a big kid too. I really am. That just loves people, loves life, and loves telling stories too. So yeah.
You still reading comic books?
Well, you know, comic books, I've fallen off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I've been reading actually more manga than anything. I've actually been going into that, reading a lot of manga. But you know, I mean, and also doing my anime.
You watch it, you watch like a ton. You watch like Naruto and all that stuff.
Bro. Yeah, that's I'm telling you, man, you want to talk about some good storytelling? You want to talk about some compelling like characterization? Go ahead and watch it. Go watch a good anime. Watch Tower of God on Crunchyroll or Demon Slayer. Let me chill out before I start going crazy. I'm over here repping Megalobox. That's over on Amazon or no, that's Hulu. Hulu and Netflix. So if you want to check a good one out, there you go.
We've got a show starting on this channel relatively soon that's going to be doing me and Koi Jandro. We used to do a show called Collider Heroes, and we're going to be doing like kind of almost like a book club. We're going to take like classic comic books, like the most famous, reading through them, and then kind of doing like an hour-long breakdown piece by piece. You know, if you'd ever want to come and talk about comic books on that show, man, it'd be fun.
Bro, you know I would love to. I'm always willing to help out, man. I love like I appreciate you reaching out to me, man, because dude, you know, all love, baby. It's all love.
Yeah, it's just fun talking, man. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming by and hanging out on the channel. Talked about some deep stuff on here, man. I'm going to have to go through and make sure I didn't say anything that makes me look like a jackass, but I'm going to do my best here.
I probably said it anyway, so I'm probably going to be canceled in the culture, so it is what it is. But, you know, Jesus loves you all, so that's all that matters, man.
Don't cancel him. Don't cancel him. Nah, I
Hey.
don't think it. I thought your opinions were good. I liked what you had to say. So
Well, I'm sure somebody does it.
yeah. That welcome to living in 2020, you know. I'm gonna let you go, man, and get your holiday weekend. But again, thank you so much for
Yes.
hanging out. Thanks for
Thank
stopping
you,
by,
Chris.
guys. Be sure to watch Black Lightning. Be sure to follow Jordan. Where can they find you on social media?
Oh yeah, social media. I saw that you had your social media. I was like, dang, I put the wrong name up. Oops. You can follow me at Jordan Calloway 6 on Instagram, and then what is my Twitter, bro? Like I'm so bad at this. You guys always ask me to have that prepared, and then at Jordan Calloway 1 on
Jordan
Twitter.
Calloway one. Yeah, that's a good one for
That's
you.
on Twitter. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's it, man. But Ben, thank you for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. It's really good talking to you. Stay healthy,
Yeah.
stay well, and I'll talk to you again soon, man.
Thank you, Chief. All right, have a good
All
one.
right. And that's going to about wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for watching another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jordan Calloway. If you have not already hit subscribe, please do. Remember to leave a comment as soon as this video is done premiering. I think you might even be able to do it now while the thing is still premiering, because comments go a long way in the YouTube algorithm, guys. That's how channels grow. Subscribe, leave a comment, hit that thumbs up. That's the holy trinity of YouTube interaction I can ask of you guys. A big time thank you to all of my Double Diamond patrons: Charlotte Gherkin, CJ Robinson, Philip Gustafson, Jeremiah Morris, Pardis Jessa Dawson, Joseph Boros. And that's going to wrap up my list of Double Diamond patrons. Remember, every single person at the Double Diamond or above level can request a cover once a month for me to play in the Studio Diary, which the next one is tomorrow, Saturday. So check for Patreon for the announcement of the time. And otherwise, guys, thanks for watching another episode of the show. We'll see you next week.